Good morning, everyone. We will get started. My name is Alan Brendy, and I'm a private wealth advisor and the managing director of Olympic Wealth Advisors. On behalf of my colleagues and our partners in mental wellness, change your algorithm, it is my pleasure to welcome you to Healthy Mind, Healthy Life. My team and I are keenly aware of the important role of mental wellness in allowing us to pursue our dreams and live the life we desire for ourselves and the people we care about. This year, we have all been challenged for reasons beyond our control, and the events of 2020 have certainly impacted our mental health. That's why, in lieu of your typical holiday gathering, we decided to host this virtual workshop so we can help lift each other up as we continue to be tested by the pressures imposed by the pandemic. At this point, I'm going to turn over to my colleague Dee, who will introduce our presenters.
Thank you, Alan, and good morning. Throughout this pandemic, one of the things I did to help me stay focused and in control of my mental well-being is to work on very creative projects. During the past few months, I had the opportunity to collaborate on developing a workshop with Change Your Algorithm, an organization here in Los Angeles that advocates for mental wellness. We first tested the workshop with the employees of Ameriprise Financial in Minneapolis. It was received very well, and we took their feedback to make it even better. And today, I am very grateful that we have the opportunity to present to you the latest and the greatest version of this workshop. So without further ado, please welcome the founder of Change Your Algorithm, Mr. Joel Relampagos.
Thank you so much, Dee. Thank you, Olympic Wealth Advisors. It's so good to see these happy faces here. My name is Joel Relampagos. I am an executive producer for network television. I have spent a good amount of years executive producing NBC's weight loss show, The Biggest Loser. And last year, I executive produced a show with Ashton Kutcher, which was about the student debt crisis. But throughout this time, as amazing as everything looked on paper, what people didn't know was that I was actually struggling with severe anxiety, with depression, which led to an alcohol addiction. And the peak of my addiction, I was drinking 2 bottles of wine a night. And so a little over a year ago, I decided that this isn't the life that I wanted or deserved. And so I chose to take a step back from entertainment, and I sought treatment. I sought treatment for exactly 50 days with some of the most amazing therapists. And during this time, I fell in love with the mind, and I fell in love with mental health, understanding that whatever it is in our lives, whether it's finance, love, relationships, hobbies, it all starts with the mind, and true strength comes from the mind and our mindset. And so once I finished treatment, I decided that I would dedicate my efforts as an executive producer to create a mental wellness company. And that's exactly what Change Your Algorithm is about. And it's really beautiful knowing that we just launched this 8 months ago, and we already have a community, of thousands, and we provide all of them free mental health support. So Change Your Algorithm actually has a nonprofit where we have volunteer therapists that take their time and basically speak to mental health, and they provide tips and tools. And whoever wants to join our classes, and we offer classes Monday through Friday, they get free mental health support. And then if they want to book a private session with a therapist, one of which you're going to meet today, she's amazing, I am her #1 fan, they get to do that. And truthfully, everyone, yes, we are in a pandemic, and though none of us are directly in charge with finding the cure for COVID, what we can do is take care of our minds, because according to the United Nations, the next pandemic could potentially be a mental health pandemic. So unlike COVID, we can do something about our mental health, right? And that's exactly why we're here today. And I want to thank you again for having us. And I just want Dr. Chaka McAlpin to introduce herself and say hi to everybody as well.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Chaka. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I'm very grateful to be in this space with you all today. I have been a mental health provider for over 10 years. I currently have a private practice based out of the Los Angeles area. And before then, I was a middle school teacher. That love of teaching now has me in a position where I'm able to help budding therapists, teach budding therapists how to develop their therapeutic skills. One of the reasons why I aligned myself with Change Your Algorithm is because of the stigma of mental health and the reluctancy that many of us have to actually seek services. I want to encourage you and let you know that mental health providers are diverse. They look like me and they feel like me. So reach out.
Love that. Thank you so much, Dr. McAlpin. All right, so we have some objectives in this workshop. First of all, we want to make sure that we provide a safe forum to acknowledge your feelings. Secondly, we want to walk you through some exercises and give you the best practices on how to cope with isolation, manage anxiety, and maintain positivity and hope. And lastly, we want to give you the tools and resources that you need to help you manage your mental well-being. And the very first thing we're going to talk about, to feel is to be human, okay? And I just want to address something really quick. When it comes to mental health, don't see this as it's boring. And yes, we may hear words like depression, anxiety, stress. Why do I need to be a part of this? Here's how I would like you to see it. Everything starts with the mindset. I want you to see this as you have the ability to do anything that you want with your life if you take care of your mind, no matter what your gender, race, ethnicity, age, sexual orientation. You've heard of all types of people accomplishing amazing things at any point in their life, even after adversity and obstacles. And the main point of Change Your Algorithm is that, yes, even though we are in a time of hardship and difficulty, we can still find and live our purpose. This pandemic does not put our life in pause, right? That can be a misconception where we say, well, we can't do anything. And so the very first thing that we need to do is address that to feel is to be human. A couple of stats for you, the CDC study surveyed, over 5,000 people in the US, adults from June 24 to 30th, 40% had experienced a mental health or behavioral health condition related to the coronavirus epidemic. 25.5% had experienced symptoms of anxiety disorder. 24.3% had experienced symptoms of depression. So if you're feeling any of these things, please do not feel like there's anything wrong with you. If anything, I'm reading you these numbers because you need to know this: you are not alone, right? There's over hundreds of millions of people across the globe that are experiencing mental illness or struggles with their mental health, but it does not mean there's something wrong with you. What it does mean is that you're just like everyone else because you're human. We're allowed to have good days. We're allowed to have bad days. We're not just bad. We're not just good. We're whole. So what we can do is choose how we respond to the thoughts and emotions that we're feeling. And every emotion that we feel is okay. And I'm going to go to Dr. McAlpin throughout these questions. But the first thing is, why is it critical to keep our thoughts and emotions in check? And truthfully, it's critical to keep them in check because sometimes when we're just keeping them in our mind, think of it as you're keeping wet clothes in a washing machine. Your mind is the washing machine and your thoughts are the wet clothes, right? And without keeping them in check, you're basically hoping that these clothes dry in the washing machine. So by keeping your emotions in check, you're taking them out of the washing machine, you're putting them in the dryer, you're folding them, you're putting in your drawers wherever they should go. Otherwise, they're just going to be sitting in that washing machine, not getting any drier. They're still wet. And that's exactly what I compare it to. And Dr. McAlpin, what are your thoughts on why it's critical to keep our emotions in check?
It is critical to keep our emotions in check because sometimes, to be honest, we keep our emotions in check because we want other people around us to be comfortable. And also our emotions can become very big and out of control. So while we shouldn't run from our emotions, we should own them. We also have to manage them So that way we can maintain our relationships with other people and even maintain our comfort level with ourselves. Because then sometimes if they're out of control, we live in regret.
That's right. And the second thing is, what happens if we don't acknowledge our feelings? Well, I'll give you a couple more numbers. There's over 240 million people across the globe that are experiencing depression, nearly 300 million that are experiencing extreme anxiety, and not to mention there's addiction. So when we don't address these emotions, they turn to manifest into harmful behavior. Right? It's those things that we bury or we try to escape or numb or try to run away from that's when it turns into a thought, into a harmful behavior. So it's so important to actually address these things so that they don't grow and to turn into something else that makes our lives a little bit more difficult. Third thing is, how do our emotions affect our physical being as well as other aspects of our lives? Let's face it, we do live, in a life where it's much easier to go around and ask somebody, how are you? And you say, yeah, I'm good. I'm good. And we post things on social media, which is really just the happiest photos of our lives. But it's so important to address that it's okay to not feel okay. And when these things, these emotions that we don't address just become buried, they tend to affect our relationships. How many of us have gotten angry at somebody else and they have nothing to do with why we're angry, right? We'll snap at a total stranger or at a friend or a family member because deep down inside, we're angry about something else. There's this beautiful quote that I heard called, if we don't heal our wounds, we're going to bleed on other people that did not cut us. And so that's exactly what I want all of us to think about, is that we, as human beings, it is our birthright to heal. It is our birthright to be empowered. It is our birthright to recover from whatever it is that we need to recover from. And truthfully, whether you had an addiction or not, we're all recovering from something. And isn't that beautiful, knowing that we are a support group because we all live under the same roof, which we're calling planet Earth. So every emotion that we feel is okay.
Uh,
And now we're going to talk about coping with isolation. Let's face it, we are in a pandemic and we're basically told, we're given permission by the government to be isolated right now because we are safer at home. However, there are things that come with isolation that can make us feel sad, that can make us feel bad, and that can lead to negative behavior. So let's get into it. What happens when we feel isolated? So working with a lot of peers in our community and Change Your Algorithm, when we feel isolated, it's that sense of feeling alone, but also not wanting to have company. And that's a main symptom of depression, right? Is when we feel alone, but we don't really want to be around anybody else. But Dr. McAlpin, what are your thoughts, on what happens to us when we feel isolated?
One of the things I want to acknowledge is that the importance of social relationships. They're actually vital to our human existence. If you think about studies and research that talk about how babies that are in orphanages tend to not do well. So we are made to be around other people for our own survival. And what we're being challenged with right now due to the pandemic is doing the complete opposite of what is vital to our own existence. When we talk about this notion of social isolation, there's actually two words that come to mind. Social isolation is on one side, but loneliness is on the other side. So social isolation is the absence or near absence of social relationships or connection. But oftentimes it's a little bit further than that for a lot of people. They feel a sense of loneliness, which is the extent in which we feel socially isolated due to like unpleasant experiences or unmet needs. And it looks at the quality and quantity of our social relationships with other people. How connected are you to other people? How frequently do you engage with them? Do you even want to be bothered? And what do you feel like you need from them? Even individuals who are living with their families right now, some of them still feel lonely. Have you ever heard of people saying that, they're in a crowded room and they feel lonely? So, social isolation, again, just the absence of any type of connection. But loneliness is that internal feeling where we feel like we don't have anybody, even if we're in a room with somebody.
That's right. And the second thing is, what internal and external factors are making us isolated? And needless to say, external factors is a good one is a pandemic, right?
Mm-hmm.
We can definitely feel isolated in a pandemic, and we're told to stay in our homes, even during the holidays. And then internal factors are really our thoughts, right? Where we start to feel sad and it makes us feel emotionally alone. As Dr. McAlpin was saying, even we could be in a crowded room and we can still feel alone. So it's really the story that we tell ourselves. And that's something that I want everybody to be mindful of. And we're going to talk a little bit about mindfulness later in the meditation. But what is the story that you are telling yourself during this time? Because we can tell stories that are a little bit more like a horror movie, right? Where it's like nothing's going to work out. I'm going to get sick. I'm believing that I'm going to get sick and everyone's going to get sick. And, my relationships are not going well. And so if we start to believe these stories, even though they're not actually true, the truth of the matter is that it is more than likely a false future. But what's harmful is when we start to believe that it's happening right now, when in fact it's not, right? And so, Dr. McAlpin, what are some internal and external factors that make us feel isolated?
I mean, you touched on one, and I'm gonna just go back to the obvious, the pandemic, right? The other thing is like working from home. It may be something just real that has nothing to do with the pandemic, such as living alone. Maybe your marital status might be a portion of it. And it just also may be your habits. So, your habits in terms of how frequently do you actively engage with other people, where you purposefully and intentfully reach out to other people. And so I think that leads to this other concept of what the internal factors. What's your history like? What's your story? What's your real story? Not the made up story, your real story. And sometimes our real story is adding to these feelings of social isolation, adding to the feelings of loneliness. Because maybe we have a family member who passed. Maybe we have always been shy. Maybe because of our own diversity, right? We never feel quite part of things. So those are some of the internal factors that's going on within us that we sometimes have to explore. And it leads to, like the best practices of, what are you exploring to not be so isolated? What are you exploring within yourself?
That's right. What is it that you can, find within yourself to be empowered? And the third thing is, what are some best practices for coping with isolation? And something that I like to tell our community, Change Your Algorithm, and now I get to tell you, is just list 3 people that you love and care about in your mind. Just name 3. Right? For me, it's my dad, my sister, and my best friend. Those are 3 people. And then make an effort to reach out to these 3 people. It can be something as simple as sending, a funny picture over text message or an email, a phone call, or this, basically setting up a Zoom session. Sometimes when we feel isolated, we feel comfortable. The more isolated we feel, even though it doesn't feel great, we tend to think that, okay, I'm fine right now in this space and I don't need to connect with anybody. But truthfully, it's the human condition. We're born to connect with people, right? So it's up to us to shift our mindset and go, wait a minute, I have so many people that I love and care about, and these people love and care about me. So even if you just think of 3 people and make an effort to connect with them, you're going to find that you're going to have these amazing conversations. You're going to talk about memories. You're going to get to laugh over things that you bond with. And then you're going to talk about all these other things that you're going to want to do in the future. So all of a sudden, you've gone from feeling isolated in your kitchen, eating leftover spaghetti, whatever it is, and then going from connecting with 3 people that you love and care about. And it's important for us to remember that gratitude is such an underrated tool that we tend to, not practice every single day. And let me tell you this, 80% of our thoughts are considered to be negative. So that's around 60,000 thoughts. It doesn't make your mind bad or anything. It's just your mind being in survival mode. However, 95% of these negative thoughts are actually on repeat. So think of a really bad song that you don't like, and then you're putting it on a broken record, right? And you don't need to listen to that broken record. So you get to actually choose and make a conscious decision to take a song that you like and then play that. It's just a matter of making the effort to shift your mindset. And I promise you, it is so possible. So connectivity is definitely the solution for isolation.
Take inventory. And I think Joel mentioned, like he said, his dad, his sister, and best friend. So that's him taking inventory. Sometimes we have to look at the size of our network. Do you have other networks? Where's your work family? Your church family, your neighborhood family? You need to create some families.
Yeah.
If you haven't already identified them, you need to take inventory and figure out what are the size of your networks. Also, the diversity of your network. Be mindful that everybody can't be everything to you. So if your network is really, really, really tiny, that's a lot of pressure on that network because maybe they're working. Maybe they have other networks and obligations they're required to be a part of. And right now, people are exhausted, so they might not have as much to give. Also, like you said, Joel, is this frequency of contact. How often are you setting up those Zoom meetings? How often are you in that kitchen making that spaghetti and realize maybe I need to try a new recipe? So one of the things when you take inventory is asking your sister, your dad, or your best friend, what are they doing? What are you cooking tonight? That sounds good. Tell me the recipe. Let me cook with you virtually.
That's right. There's a story that one of our peers in Change Your Algorithm said, I said, so what makes you happy? And then she said, oh, singing. And I'm like, oh, got it. And then, so why don't you sing more? She's like, oh, I just I don't think there's a career in singing. Well, I'm like, well, this is kind of the perfect time to sing because you're at home, no one's listening to you, and it makes you happy. So don't forget, if it makes you happy, that's going to change the chemicals in your body. That's going to make you feel excited about life, right? So do the things that you may have been putting in the back shelf and going, I don't need to do that. I've been very, very busy. There's no time to do that. Well, guess what? There's no excuse to not be happy. We all deserve to be happy. So even if it's something so silly that you feel like is silly, now is not the time for judgment, right? This is a judgment-free zone. If it puts a smile on your face and laughter in your belly, then go for it. All right. So let's talk about the big one here. As I mentioned, there's over 240 million, actually nearly 300 million people worldwide that are experiencing anxiety. So let's talk about managing anxiety. So what happens when we become anxious? Anyone that knows me knows that I love metaphors. So here's what I like to compare anxiety to. Our mind is like a magician, okay? When we go to a magic show and we see that magician saw his assistant in half, literally like 2 body parts. When we're in the magic show, none of us are calling the police saying, oh my gosh, I just saw somebody commit a crime. We tend to go, oh wow, that was a really cool magic trick. That was a really cool illusion, right? And then we stand up, we give a round of applause because that was an impressive piece of magic. However, our minds can actually be like a magician. And here are some magic tricks that our minds like to pull. I'm going to be alone for the rest of my life. I'm not going to make it past this pandemic. I'm always going to be unhappy. I am not worthy of great relationships. And so here's what you need to tell yourself. These are illusions that your mind, your mental magician is pulling, right? You actually get to take a step back and go, all right, mind, I see what you did there. You pulled another magic trick, but you don't necessarily have to believe it. In fact, you don't have to believe it. If it doesn't feel aligned to your own truth, then always know that your mind is pulling out magic tricks, right? Nothing wrong with your mind. It's conditioned to do that. However, anxiety is when we start to believe that they're not illusions, that they're fact, that they're real, that the world is going to fall apart. And that's when we start to feel anxious. We start shaking, we start sweating, and then we go, oh my gosh, it's all real. And so think of it that way. Your mind is a magician and you get to see illusions and you don't necessarily have to believe them. Dr. McAlpin, what are your thoughts on, what happens when we become anxious?
I love your metaphor, Joel. I appreciate that. It is true. Anxiety is definitely very much playing a trick on you. But in terms of what's going on internally, it's our stress response system. It's a natural biological system being kicked into gear. Oftentimes we think, ugh, I don't want this feeling. This doesn't feel good. And you're doing everything you can to fight the feeling of anxiety. But I have to actually say to you, we might need that feeling. We have these basic emotions: happy, sad, fear, anger, and anxiety. They're basic. And we are designed to have them in our brain to flow throughout our body and our spirit. But the only one out of the 5 that we want to grab a hold to is happy. We only want to stay in happy. Happy, 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 happy. They write songs about it. But for some reason, we are born and innately have anger. We innately are born to have fear. And we are innately born to have sadness. And we are innately born to have anxiety. We need these other emotions to survive. Imagine if a tiger, because you're just walking through LA and tigers are just roaming aimlessly through LA. They might be shaped and they may look a little different, but if a tiger approached you and you just stayed right there, that would be a problem. So we need our stress response system to tell us to start running. And I don't mean run, I mean get the hell out of there quickly. That's our stress response system. That's that anxiety system working, and it's working the way it's supposed to. While Joe mentioned every feeling is acceptable. Every feeling is good. We need all of them. And so that includes this feeling of anxiety.
That's right. And so what are some best practices for managing anxiety? And so what I like to tell, our community at Change Your Algorithm is that one of the best practices to managing anxiety, first of all, is accepting it and remembering that there's nothing wrong with you if you're experiencing anxiety. We actually make anxiety worse when we don't acknowledge it, when we try to run away from it, and trust me from firsthand experience, when we try to numb it with things like alcohol, right? And that's really how addiction begins. And so something that I like to present as a solution to manage anxiety is journaling. How many of us have sat in our beds at night and those thoughts are just constantly spinning and spinning? We get a little bit of anxiety and then we wake up and the thoughts are still there, and then they'll pop up at the most random moments. And We don't really know what to do with those thoughts. So when it comes to journaling, think of it this way. As I mentioned, your mind is like a washing machine. Your thoughts are like wet clothes, right? Not journaling is like keeping those clothes in the washer and expecting them to dry. And so when you actually take a pen and put it onto a piece of paper, it is a kinesthetic exercise that makes your mind feel like it's being listened to. And it's very different from typing something into a phone or typing in your computer, but have to physically write down every single word. You're actually focusing your mind on what needs to be addressed. And trust me, I did not journal at all before my days in treatment when I wanted to become better. And once I started to write things out, I'm not kidding you guys, I found so much clarity. It's almost like I was able to see my thoughts on paper. Well, I was, and then actually find solutions. Because here's what doesn't help is when we're experiencing anxiety, we're just putting those wet clothes in the spin cycle in the washing machine. They're spinning and spinning and spinning. And then we're just thinking about how long it's been spinning for and when are these clothes going to dry. So journaling is when we actually take them out and put them into the dryer. And then you write down literally whatever it is that you feel. And the most important thing is remembering to not judge yourself when you do that and to not beat yourself up when you do feel the way that you do. Remember that we do tend to make things worse if we beat ourselves up. We start to feel guilty. We start to feel shameful. But when you're writing your feelings out and your emotions, you go, this is how I feel. Okay. And finding compassion in that. And knowing that everyone feels this way, they just don't talk about it really, right? And so when you actually see how you feel on paper and why you feel that way, you start to find solutions. And that is the beautiful part. And here's the best part, you start to feel relief. Your mind doesn't feel like it's so heavy and it's got a million thoughts spinning around. And so putting it out there, journaling, pen and paper is a fantastic kinesthetic exercise. Give it a shot. Dr. McAlpin, what are your thoughts on some best practices for managing anxiety?
Since anxiety is preparatory, right? It's preparing our bodies to act. So like you said, Joel, about this notion of journaling, if you think of it as a preparation tool. So I have a job interview. I'm really nervous. I have an important event that I need to attend, maybe a wedding that I'm really nervous about. Will I look good? Or even just this anxiety of brewing of when is this pandemic ever going to end? Putting it down on paper, realizing that anxiety is preparing you to act, not fighting it, owning it as a purposeful feeling and necessary feeling in our body. One of the things that Joel mentioned earlier is how these thoughts sometimes creep in and they just real slow coming in, trying to mess up our goal, right? And they'll say, you can't do it, or this is never going to end. This is a disaster. You're all by yourself. You can't, whatever it's saying. You need to check that. You need to check that anxiety. Own it though. Say, I hear you, voice. Not today, voice. I'm not dealing with that today. And maybe you are even journaling and writing those thoughts down. So maybe you can tackle that with the therapist. Maybe that's your history coming up. Maybe there's other things coming. Maybe it's your present. Maybe your last job interview didn't go so well. Being compassionate that, these are feelings that you have, but you can also allow yourself to put them in a box or put them on paper and tackle them with a friend, tackle them with a therapist, but being kind to yourself that, it's okay to have the thoughts, but check them and say, not today.
That's exactly right. It's exactly right. And be curious and excited about the fact that you have the opportunity to do this. I always use the word opportunity versus challenge. We all have the opportunity to upgrade ourselves and become better. All right, on to the next slide. So let's talk about maintaining positivity and hope. So maintaining positivity and hope is so important, especially during this time, right? We'll watch the news and let's face it, there's a ton of bad news, and we'll hear stories, and it's not exactly the most encouraging stories. And yes, we are in a pandemic. This has been a tough year, but here are some things that we want to discuss about this topic. Amidst what is currently happening around us, how do we maintain positivity and hope? And so, once again, it's all about the story that we're telling ourselves. I always tell people that self-awareness is when we are able to differentiate between fact and fables. Here's a fable. My life is never going to be as good as how it used to be, right? And so we tend to do this thing as human beings called mind reading, or thinking that we're psychic, when in all actuality, it is impossible to accurately predict the future. When we start to believe that this negative future is in fact going to happen, that's when we lose positivity, and that's when we lose hope. And so it's really important to maintain this. Something that I like to tell people is to go into positive affirmations, because going to the second thing, if we fall off the wagon, how do we get back on it? Meaning, if we start to become depressed, if we start to feel sad, if we start to feel scared about our current circumstance or the future, that means that our mind is telling ourselves a really scary story that isn't making us feel good, right? But through positive affirmations, we get to tell ourselves however it is that we want to feel. It's interesting, you guys, because I'll ask people, so how do you want to feel? And then they go, I don't want to feel sad. I don't want to feel depressed. I don't want to feel anxious. And then I go, no, how do you want to feel? So our minds literally go, well, I don't want to feel this way. I don't want to feel that way. And we put a lot of energy and effort and power and definition on those things that we don't want to feel, when we need to actually put energy and effort and power and definition on how we want to feel. So affirmations is when we can tell ourselves, I am safe, I am blessed, I'm grateful because of my family. I'm grateful because I'm healthy right now. And even telling yourself, I'm grateful because I'm going to stay healthy, actually having this faith that your life is flourishing and that it's going to get better even during a pandemic. So you're consciously shifting, what that story is that your mind is telling yourself. I always tell people that our hearts are basically like a projector light, like a movie projector. It's just going to keep shining. That's what our heart does. It just keeps shining. And then our mind is the film that's going to go over what our heart is shining. So if we're going to choose to put a horror movie film over our heart's just going to go, all right, here's the horror movie you wanted to watch, right? But if you wanted to watch a more inspirational movie, or in my case, a rom-com, I'm a romantic comedy sucker, then put that over your heart, and then your heart's going to go, okay, we're going to watch this now. So don't forget that you actually have the power to create these affirmations. And truthfully, I actually don't think positivity on its own works. But if you give meaning to positivity the same way you gave meaning to negativity, then that's when positivity actually works. I'll tell you this, during my days of addiction, I did everything in my power to make sure I could sneak in 2 bottles of wine a night, and then I could still wake up the next day and then finish work early enough so that I could drink 2 more bottles of wine a night and not tell anybody. There was so much effort that went into that addiction. And now I'm realizing I'm going to take that same amount of effort, if not more, into a much more positive life. So my take is that positivity doesn't work on its own, but when you put effort and meaning and belief to it, that's when we're talking about you having an empowered future. And so what are some best practices for starting and ending our day on a positive note? I like to tell people this. You are the MVP of your life, right? So remember, MVP, and that's going to come into play right now, because before you even touch your phone, friends and family, when you wake up, before you even touch your phone, tell yourself MVP. M stands for meditation. I'm going to ask each of you to take advantage of the opportunity to meditate for 3 minutes. And don't worry, I'm going to guide you guys through a meditation after this. V for MVP stands for visualization. Visualize what you want your day to look like, and visualize with intention, right? Do you want to feel good throughout your day? Do you want to feel love and connection throughout your day? Sometimes it's easy to get up and go, all right, I got to go mow the lawn. I got to go pay this bill. I got to go do this thing. And you're already starting your day feeling a little bit stressed and behind the eight ball. So visualize what you want to accomplish. Remember, you don't have to live your life. You get to live your life. So when you visualize that, it changes everything. And then P for MVP is perspective. If you have a little bit of residue left in your mind that is feeling negative, feeling sad, remember that you get to shift your perspective, right? Instead of saying that you got to pay the house bill for this or that, you get to go, oh my gosh, I have a house. There's over 30 million Americans that are unemployed. The homelessness rates are skyrocketing. So don't forget that you have a lot of things that much, much more people really wish that they had in their lives right now. So don't be afraid to give yourself permission to shift your perspective. Don't worry, I'm not going to quiz you guys on what MVP is, because I'm going to say what it is again. So M is meditation, V is visualization, P is perspective. Shift your perspective. And it's important to do this between waking up and touching your phone. Because let's face it, the second we touch our phone, we're down that rabbit hole. And it's the biggest task for me. I'm like, all right, don't touch your phone, Joel. Just practice MVP. And speaking of meditation, let's go on to our next slide. I want to talk about the art of mindfulness, and this is a meditation exercise. So I'm going to guide you guys through a 3-minute meditation. You know, the same type of meditation that I'd love for you guys to do each morning that you wake up. So go ahead and just get nice and relaxed. Just gently close your eyes. Feel free to turn your cameras off if you want. There's no judgment here. Just listen to the sound of my voice. Just breathing in naturally, breathing out, keeping your eyes gently closed. If you feel any stress or tension, it's all right, just breathe into it. No need to try to fight it or resist it. You are in meditation mode right now, and you get to feel calm and relaxed because you deserve to feel calm and relaxed. Just feel how good the air feels coming in through your nose, exhaling through your nose. Feeling so blessed that your lungs are functioning without you having to do anything. Your lungs are functioning to keep you alive. The same for your heart, just noticing how it beats. Noticing that your heart is also functioning to keep you alive. And when our thoughts begin to wander, that's perfectly natural. I want each of you to see your thoughts as the ocean. Sometimes it's calm, sometimes it can be rough. But you don't have to be a part of the ocean. You don't have to be in there right now. I want you to picture yourself as a lighthouse. This beautiful, strong, tall lighthouse just overlooking the ocean. You are the observer of your ocean of thoughts. Knowing that if a thought is bad, it just comes in and then it can come out again. If a thought is good, you can really just enjoy it as it comes in and comes out again. Taking a step back from the ocean of thoughts, just breathing in naturally, not judging anything, knowing that mindfulness means observing without judgment. Sometimes we get so carried away with our emotions and our thoughts that we think we are attached to it. There's no need to be attached. You're the lighthouse, and your thoughts are the ocean. And so let's take a nice big inhale, exhaling anything that doesn't serve you, knowing that despite any external chaos, any external circumstance, your inner peace can always be in your control. And only you have the power to that, unless you give someone else access to it. So you get to control how you respond to this beautiful, vast ocean that we call our thoughts. And so at 3, begin to wiggle your fingers and toes. At 2, you can bring your mind back into the space. And then at 1, you can gently open your eyes. All right. Welcome back, you beautiful, wonderful people. I hope everyone made it down from their lighthouse safely. I know it's really high. It's good to see everyone down here in the sand. How was that for everyone? Can you get a thumbs up? Okay, great, awesome. And then, all right, great, we got everybody. All right, so let's just go through some key takeaways. So the first one is connectivity. Remember that when we're feeling isolated, it is our birthright as humans to connect with people. There's no need to feel like even though we're in a pandemic, we're physically disconnected, we can still be emotionally and energetically connected to people. When you're feeling alone, think of 3 people that you love and care about and reach out to them. And like I said, even through a text message, it makes all the difference. The second key takeaway is journaling. When we're feeling anxious, it's okay to actually embrace that anxiety, and then we actually write about it. Journaling is a kinesthetic exercise that takes our thoughts from our mind and it puts it onto somewhere else, such as a piece of paper. And third takeaway is positive affirmations. When it comes to maintaining positivity and hope, it's important to consciously choose what movie we want to watch, right? So positive affirmation is telling ourselves, I am strong, I am beautiful, I am safe, I am healthy, but not just saying it as if you're just saying something, actually believing it, providing yourself the evidence as to why you are all of these amazing things. And when it comes to things of the future, providing evidence why you will be living this life in the future. Remember, we're all in a work in progress, and anxiety is when we're kind of worried about everything, when all we really need to do is just focus on the next task. There's this beautiful quote from Martin Luther King, which I love, and he says, "Don't worry about the entire staircase, just focus on the next step." And that's all we really need to do, because we do have the solution for the next step. You don't need to worry about step 275, because by the way, there probably may not even be 275 steps. Just focus on the next step. And journaling is a great way to do that. And then the last thing is, positive affirmations is a great way to do that. And the fourth thing is MVP, meditation, visualization, and perspective. All right, so when you wake up, before you even touch your phone, We get to do a 3-minute meditation. Picture yourself as the lighthouse and your thoughts as the ocean. Visualize how you want your day to look, whether it's I'm going to exercise, I'm going to call my best friend, I'm going to tell a stranger hello and make other people feel good. And then perspective. If you have negative thoughts remaining, remember that you still get to shift your perspective. Big thing to know is that you don't have to live your life. You get to live your life, right? You get to live your life. We are all here. How beautiful is that? All right, so moving on. So we're all in this together, right? And that's really what Change Your Algorithm is based on, is we are a community that believes that we have nothing to be shameful of. We have nothing to be feeling guilty of. All of these emotions are valid. Every single thing that you are feeling right now is completely valid. And so we invite each and every one of you to join the Change Your Algorithm community, to receive updates on free classes and events. The website is changealgorithm.com. And then, we're going to add that into the chat as well, just so everybody has it. And like I said, my day job is I'm actually an executive producer making primetime network television shows. And Change Your Algorithm is so meaningful for me because it's rewarding to provide people, everyday people, with free mental wellness support. And next year, you're going to see that we're expanding to fitness as well. Second thing is, if you want to present this workshop, the exact same workshop that you were just a part of right now, to your community, whether it's, your school, your job, your church, all of that stuff, I would love to do this for your community, even if it's just a group of friends. So this is my personal email. It's joel@changealgorithm.com. Make sure to write that down. I love reading comments from every single person. I love, once again, connectivity with people. So please email me whatever it is that you want to say. I'm happy to hear it. And I'm happy to hold this program and workshop for your community. And then the third thing is, if you want to connect with a therapist, if you feel like, you haven't had therapy before, but you're thinking about it, I promise you this. I used to be one of those people that would say, therapy, I don't need it. Because if I see a therapist, that means there's something wrong with me. But I promise you, it is the best thing that I've ever done. Right? It's like journaling times a million. And so I want to ask Dr. Chaka McAlpin, Dr. McAlpin, for someone that hasn't done therapy before, what's something that they can experience or expect?
You can expect to just be in a space where the goal is to be accepting towards you. The goal is to create safety for you. The great goal is for you to learn about you. It's a space all about you. Now, finding a therapist is not a good therapist is like finding a good pair of shoes. It's not always the first one you pick is going to be the right one, and that's okay. Look and search for one that fits you. And sometimes people will just call me and they'll ask me a few questions to try to get a feel for me. Some therapists offer free consultations. But it's finding a good fit, not necessarily someone who's going to co-sign every behavior and just cheer you on, because some of our behaviors might need to be challenged. But you do want to feel safe and you do want to feel accepted, and just know that that's the goal of a therapist.
That's exactly right. And the other thing that Change Your Algorithm does is that a majority of our classes are led by certified mental health professionals. And so by joining these classes, you get to sample, if you will, some of our therapists. It's kind of like shoe shopping, as Dr. McAlpin would say. Without having to pay for a single penny, you get to join our classes absolutely for free. And then if there's a therapist that you like, we give you that person's information, and then we're not even a part of it after that. That's totally between you and the therapist. So it's such a fantastic way to explore all the mental health support that's out there. And if you want to reach out to Dr. McAlpin, who is fantastic. Like I said, I'm her #1 fan. Her email is chakamcalpin.lmft@gmail.com. All right. So once again, thank you so much, Olympic Wealth Advisors. I'm going to toss it to Dee right now. And thank you to Dee and to Alan. Oh, Dee, I think you're on mute.
There we go. Thank you, Joel and Dr. McAlpin. As Joel mentioned, we are all in this together. The Change Your Algorithm team would be happy to deliver the workshop, as Joel mentioned, to your family, friends, or even the workplace or organizations of which you belong to. And Dr. McAlpin is local. She's here in LA. So if you are in California, she's available to work with you if that is something that you would want to explore with her in terms of working with a therapist. Now we're going to be here for another 15 minutes to answer any of your questions, and Joel and Dr. McAlpin will obviously be here to address them. But before we do our Q&A session, I'm going to turn it over to Alan, who has a surprise for all of you.
Thank you, Dee. This holiday season, of course, is also a season of renewed hope and new beginnings as we look forward to the new year. So as a special treat to all of you who took the time to join us today, we invited local talents to spread some holiday cheer. So here to perform an Eric Clapton classic and a Bill Withers greatest hit, please welcome Yu Uuka and Charmaine Park.
Hi, good morning to you all beautiful MVP practitioners. Thank you so much for having us, Dee. My name's Charmaine, and this is our wonderful guitarist, Yu Uuka, and we're going to perform 2 songs for you guys. We hope you like it. When I wake up in the morning, love, and the sunlight hurts my eyes, and something in that morning, love, lays heavy on my mind. Then I look at you, and the world's alright with me. Just one look at you, and I know it's gonna be a lovely day. A lovely day, yeah. Lovely day, lovely day, lovely day, lovely day, lovely day. When the day that lies ahead of me seems impossible to face, and someone else instead of me, they always seem to go the way. Then I look at you, and the world's alright with me. Just one look at you, and I know it's gonna be a lovely day. A lovely day. Lovely day, lovely day, lovely day, lovely day, lovely day. lies ahead of me seems impossible to face, and someone else instead of me, they always seem to know the way. When I look at you and the world's alright with me, oh, just one look at you and I know it's gonna be a lovely day. A lovely day, yeah, yeah, yeah. Lovely day, 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 a lovely day, yeah, yeah. Ooh, yeah. It's gonna be a lovely day, a lovely day, baby. It's gonna be a Thank you. All right, so now that we're sure we're gonna have a lovely day, we are ready to face the new year, 2021, and say goodbye to 2020 and feel stronger and calm and motivated and inspired after your wonderful meditation this morning. So now maybe you are ready to change the world. If I could reach the stars, pull one down for you, shine it on my heart, so you can see the truth. And this love I have inside, everything is easy. But for now, something in my dreams that I can change the world. I would be the sunlight in your universe. You would think my love is really something good, baby, if I could change the world. If I could be your queen, even for a day, yeah, I'd take you as my king. Oh yeah, I'd have it no other way. And I love the rule, yeah, kingdoms we have made. Till then, I'll be your I'm wishing for a day that I can change the world. I would be the sunlight in your universe. You would think my love was really something good, baby, if I could change the world. Baby, if I could change. Change a world. Oh yeah, I would be the sunlight in your universe. You would think my love was really something good, baby. If I could change the world, baby, if we could change the world, baby, if I could change. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having us. We hope you like them, and happy holidays to you all. Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, you and Charmaine. Let's give them a round of applause, everyone. Like what Dee said earlier, Joel and Dr. McAlpin will be here for another 10 to 15 minutes to answer any of your questions. And thank you again for everyone for joining us. It's really great to see everyone right now. And enjoy your weekend. Please continue to stay safe and happy holidays.